My next guest is the founder of the Mayan Warrior, a multimedia art vehicle since 2012. He is also the creator of the sound installation Illumina, which appeared at Burning Man for the first time since 2017. He's also the founder of Senor Pego, fintech company that helps the unbanked in Mexico. If you like what he's saying, follow him on IG, Pablo GV, or MayanWarrior.com. And a special shout out, special thanks to Maria Sanchez Yatriki of SACPE for making this introduction. Please welcome Pablo Gonzalez Vargas.
Thank you so much, CK. Super happy to be here.
I'm really excited to have a conversation with you. I want to share this with you publicly. In your conversation with Eamon Armstrong, you had said that your desire is to inspire and be inspired. My experience of going to Burning Man for the first time in 2017 and encountering the Mayan Warrior art card for the first time, I remember very vividly, it was the playa, which symbolizes for me our society, our world today. And you have beautiful, extravagant art card from different places of the playa. And there was Mayan Warrior with the big ass lasers and sound you can hear across from the deep playa. And I was like, wow, they really go all out to bring their gift to the playa. And it left a significant impression. I still remember vividly that visual. And I actually didn't know this, but I didn't know the car traveled 8,000 kilometers to be there. So, an extraordinary accomplishment. I just want to share that with you publicly.
Thank you, CK. I think what you just described is the best part of Burning Man is to be inspired, and it's a beautiful thing to be inspired in life. I think that's like the ignition and the motor for a lot of great things. So, my desire is for that to happen to all of us always.
Amazing. So for those people that don't know who or what is Mayan Warrior, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is it and what does it stand for?
Yes, so it's a collaborative project between a lot of professions from Mexico, from all over the world at this point. It's a project that has grown for basically 10 years now. And what we try to do is we're a platform. We're a platform for upcoming artists. As you know, Burning Man, the main dynamic is gifting, right? So we all work hard year round to provide that gift, which is our time, effort on the playa to inspire and to bring new artists, right? And to really push them. And the roots of the Mayan are, of course, from Mexico. No, there's a lot of Mayan culture, a lot of Huichol culture, which is the tribe from the Peyote Desert, and we're all big fans of their art. And also, we're being very inspired by them and by the Mayans. So I think it's kind of like a representation of some roots of Mexico, some upcoming artists from Mexico, and also the project helps a lot of communities in need in Mexico, and I think that's where the gifting cycle really is complete, right? Extending that gift of Burning Man, because as many people know, the gifts at Burning Man are completely, without expecting anything in return, which is another subject and another beautiful dynamic. I think that extending that to the real world, to indigenous communities, I think it's a beautiful thing. So that's basically in a nutshell what we do in the Mayan project.
So what I'm hearing you say is that is a vehicle, a literal vehicle that
Mhm.
introduce the Mayan culture, the indigenous culture of
Correct.
Mexican heritage, and that also is a way to as an ambassador to bring out the Burning Man experience to people who've never been to Burning Man as well. Is that an accurate reflection of what you said?
Yes, yes. So of course, we do fundraisers
Uh-huh.
around Mexico, US, and other countries in Europe, and at the same time, we help communities. So we do extend the Burning Man culture for people that haven't experienced it,
Mhm.
and also we extend the gifting to the indigenous communities. So that's kind of like the cycle, and then we come back to the play and do it again.
Mhm. Mhm. You're very liberal about talking about your plant medicine experience. I've heard you talked about it very liberally at different podcasts, with Eamon, also with this other, I think his name is Ocho or something like that, the
Mhm.
Spanish
Right.
podcast. So why don't we go into that? Because on Noble Warrior, we do talk about that a lot. I'm a student of ayahuasca.
Mm.
It experiences plant medicine is being quite a catalytic experience for me to open my eyes, to have a spiritual experience. In fact, Noble Warrior was started because of a spiritual experience, but we can get into that later. So,
Right.
if you don't mind getting into it more, what is the significance of your peyote experience, and how did it help shape you with the vision of Mayan Warrior?
Sure. I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing at this point in my career to be that open to that, because I mean, things are changing very fast in that
Mhm,
regard, right?
mhm,
Like it's not the same 10 years ago than 5 years ago than
mhm,
regarding that subject.
mhm,
So, but I think it's crucial, and as I think as Terence McKenna said, that we don't have 500 years. No, we don't have. We need to do this fast, and I think and as he describes, is like the basically the only game in town. No, in the sense of like that's what can transform a human really fast. No, and I think for
but why
me,
the urgency? That's a question, 'cause some.
the urgency.
Mhm,
Well, from the urgency comes from, I mean, we are all aware of what's happening and what in the world, right? And I
mhm,
think um it's, as I see it, is I mean, we are all fighting our own battle, right?
mhm,
And I think the collective consciousness is kind of like in a place that we're all seeing a lot of things, no, but I think the critical mass of people that understand what they need to understand to like start to, be aware of our surroundings and taking care of them, right, and other people. I think the fastest route to get there massively is through psychedelics. I
mhm,
think I mean, we know that, right? Is the leap forward that you can make on one of those sessions with any,
mhm,
known natural psychedelic. It's way faster than
mhm,
years of therapy, and I'm not discrediting therapy,
mhm,
of course it's super grateful, but I think it's a very good complement, at least,
mhm,
to really, the what you see, you can call them teachings, no,
mhm,
of the plant, or the spirit, or whatever form you want to like see it as, is very clear. It's kind of like an opening, clarifying experience that makes you see, your thoughts, your habits, your doings, and your relationship to the earth, and a lot of stuff. So uh, I think there are great enablers and therapy sessions, whatever is the plant you choose, to really, take a look inside yourself,
mhm,
right? So I think having a moment to get out of your baseline consciousness is a great opportunity to look at your life, in another angle, and just by that, happening, and you will get more insights. It's kind of like looking to at a 3D model. If you always like see it from the same perspective, you only see one face, but you
mhm,
look at it from different angles, which is what happens with these experiences. you learn more, and by learning more, you become more aware and better, basically.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think it's key.
Mm. Thanks for sharing your experience. On Noble Warrior, we do talk a lot about various plant medicine experience. For me personally, plant medicine has been a game changer in just if you look at using your 3D model analogy,
Mhm.
we look at the world through a certain lens. And my lens was, shall we say, a hypercritical one, right? Looking at the gap between where I am and where I want to be and constantly looking at it. And that's very useful at the same time. That is also doesn't give a very pleasant quality of life, so to speak.
Mm.
So plant medicine has been a great teacher for me to zoom out and look at my um, myself as a player on this stage, and then look at, oh, okay, and look at this character CK. How does he get to know himself better? How does he get to know other people better? How does he see himself as the role of that he plays to the greater humanity, and allow me to learn lots of things. So I'm very, very grateful for my experience of my plant medicine experiences.
Yeah, that's a great yeah, angle and way of looking at it.
And I think the more we can talk about this, and we can normalize these type of conversations, because it's especially for the thought leaders, the influencers, the more they can share their personal perspective, the more that people can say, oh, okay, so it's not just the hippies doing this, but actually, very high functioning, inspiring leaders are also using these teachers to enhance their quality of life.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's a matter of time. Sometimes I think from the ego standpoint, no, you want things to be fast, right?
Hmm.
It's like the mind wants it to be fast, and we kind of like expect to for this to happen very quickly. And I think from the other side of the observant, the natural progression of this happening and permeating into society, and after this happening, eventually you will have leaders in powerful places in the political landscape or the entrepreneurial landscape, making decisions and being part of this movement and being more aware.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in the next 50 years.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I mean, you are helping co-creating that collective space to shift the collective consciousness, a few thousand people at a time. So one of the reason why I want to talk to Think Camp organizers is Burning Man is a huge transformational container in itself, like 80,000, 100,000 people at a time. And the Think Camps are smaller containers. And my perspective is I want to talk to the quote unquote transformational camps. So who intentionally design a space that shifts people's consciousness, awareness, way of thinking. And Mind Warrior to me certainly is doing that. So if you don't mind going into more of the intentional design of this moving uh, experience, what let's see. Yeah. What did you have this vision from day one back in 2012, or was it a smaller scale, then you slowly scale it up?
I mean, I think has been a progression. The initial vision was came from a huge excitement of like knowing Burning Man and having the experience of going and seeing everything that you see there and being inspired and like just wanting to participate next year. No,
Mhm.
it came from that impulse of wow, I want to be a part of this and contribute. And I think a lot of people experience that. And of course the project started to come together, and I think at the beginning was more about you know Mayan calendar, the world ending on 2012, which was
Mhm.
the first year of the project, and that was kind of like the first that mix with the sacred geometry, psychedelic, indigenous art, Tron, Burning Man inspired kind of thing, right? But as the years passed, and also having this blunt experiences, with the Huicholes, with and peyote has been like very, I think it has been one of the main characters in my life, and how they
Mm,
do the ceremonies, the Huicholes, is that you have a fire, right,
mhm,
in the middle. A lot of them do, but they pay like a lot of the ceremony and the dynamic comes around the fire. Fire is super important, no? And they also have their own incense that they make, right? They have their own chants, and they have someone that is guiding throughout the whole journey, right? And so I think we started to see some, we wanted to emulate something like that, right?
mm.
So when we go out
So like
in
ceremonies on wheel kind of thing?
kind of like a ceremony on wheel, which we have the fire, we burn the copal. We usually bring the huichol copal when you can find some, because it's very difficult. If not, we,
Mm,
we can find other ones. But anyway, we have a special track that Mauricio Rebolledo made that says "Here Comes the Warrior" by
mm,
Rebolledo, and that's kind of like the theme song that we always put when we go out. It's kind of like a call for warriors, no, kind of like a call to um to action, no, and we feel like, what are we battling? We're just warriors of our own battle of waking up and conquering your own self, kind of
mhm,
generation.
mhm,
So and so there is a lot of genes of that thought incorporated into this, like this the stage sound car ceremony on wheels while it moves, right? And then when it stops, no, you have different sessions with different DJs that, I think, if you reading between the lines of what a DJ does, that there is more and more like awareness of the intention and the journey that they take you. No, it's not just playing music. It's a journey, and every journey,
mhm.
every intention of every DJ is different. So you can really plug into that and experience their
Hey,
their
quick question on that note, because you mentioned that each
yeah.
DJ may have different intentions. Do you have conversations with each DJs and ask them what their specific intentions are before they perform, or you just kind of experienced it and
No,
hey,
yeah,
just don't
really.
tell me what your intentions are?
No, I mean it varies, because some DJs, you can have this conversation with them,
Mhm,
right, about the intention and how important is that, and
mhm,
some of other DJs are they unconsciously do it, and maybe they're not aware of what it's happening. So I think I have that conversation with a few of them,
mhm,
that kind of like they really prepare, they really, no, I mean, consciously do it.
mhm,
and
mhm,
and I think that's going to happen more and more, of course.
mhm, mhm. And you said that it's a ceremony on wheels. These are my words, not your words, my
Yeah.
interpretation. Yeah. And then the goal is to activate something, right? Taking action towards something, you said earlier. By the way, warrior, why noble warrior
Mhm.
here, the definition of warrior is the having the courage to lean into the discomfort to
Mm,
discover oneself. So when you said what
cool.
you said, like that's to me the same definition.
I love it. It's beautiful. Yeah, leaning into
Yeah.
discomfort. That's the place you have to be,
Yeah.
to evolve. I'm gonna adopt that.
Please do.
Let
Please do.
let me know.
Let's propagate this thing.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And so
Mhm.
that's what happens out. in the playa. But I think the main transformational experience for me, at least, and for my colleagues, is at the camp.
Hmm.
And I think what happens there, and I think everybody that builds a camp and builds anything on the playa has experienced this dynamic of, um, it's a journey from beginning to end, the whole Burning Man experience, and this discomfort that you're talking about. You
Hmm.
really lean into that because, I mean, in the real world, whatever organization you're in, no, everything is, hey, you have to do this because you have to do it, because
Hmm.
that's your job and you're receiving a salary for it. So,
Hmm.
the reason you're there is very, narrow, no? But
Hmm.
going into a collaborative space to kind of like survive and make a home, and try to share, the load of building something like that, because people don't know, but it's a big task to build something on the playa, a big task. I think is one of the most extreme things I've done in my life, for my mind and my spirit and my health, right? Because you get very little sleep. um,
Hmm.
you have a lot of pressure, and by pressure, people may think like, "Whoa, what do you mean pressure?" Okay, it's like you're in the middle of the desert, and if the basic stuff, if the basic services or the basic stuff of the camp doesn't work, I mean, you're in a very tight situation. If you don't have water, no, in the middle of the desert, if you don't have food, if you don't have energy, no, for I mean, you really start to appreciate, wow, like how in a city can you just open your the sink, what do you call that, um,
Hmm.
and you have water there
Hmm.
always. Your
Hmm.
shower, no,
Hmm.
magically appears. And magically, you go to the restroom, just flush the toilet, and boom, goes away. Look at
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
of that, and I think that reconnecting to the basic elements of survival, I think it's very transformational for everybody that experiences that, and also between you and your colleagues, because you get a lot of emotions of like rage, or you get super angry, and then you get like super happy, and it's a roller coaster of emotions that you have to like be really aware of how to react to like tough situations, because
Hmm.
and we've seen camps and these like little tribes and these little communities break apart really easy.
Hmm.
If you look at the story of any camp at Burning Man, very few survive more than 3 years, no, and even less 5 years. So that's a constant kind of like when you're having a discussion, no, that you have you be aware of your reactions, and your mind is a very meditative, how do you say it?
Meditative.
Meditative, sorry,
That's great.
meditative experience of like just watching your thoughts and watching your emotions, and not engaging in those critical moments where you want to just strangle your your colleague, of like, because we're all doing the work, right? So I think that alone, that experience alone, is very reconnecting, very transformative for all of the members, and that makes a community, a tight community, that extends after the burn, and I think that also kind of like has its own life and its own growth, and it touches other areas outside Burning Man. So I think that's talking about the transformative
Hmm.
aspects of Burning Man. I think that's a huge one. I think that's the most important one, is that sense of community, with encountering the frictions that the play has, and that also goes to building art.
A
No, that's
thousand percent. A thousand percent. So, like, quick pause. Um, Burning Man is a harsh environment through and through, right? Desert, no electricity, no water, obviously, and obviously no food. There's no 7-Eleven around the corner to get some groceries, right? So you got to take everything in, and also within 7 days, 2 weeks, break everything down again. So it's a beautiful experience for me to witness the desert, nothing, entire city breaks down to nothing. Question real quick. How big is the camp for Mayan Warrior?
for Mayan is between 140 and 160
Beautiful.
people.
So what a 10 years of inspiring people to go to the desert, working in harsh environment, high heat, no shade, for weeks at a time. You had said when you were there for 3 weeks, right? What are some of the major lessons that you learn as a leader to
Um,
create a container to for 160 people?
I think. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I'm kind of used to that dynamic because in the real world, I'm an entrepreneur. That's
Hmm.
but as you said, I have a startup, and
Hmm.
I sold it last year, but it was also 10 years of building.
Oh,
And
I didn't know that.
no,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you're kind of like boss, friend,
Hmm.
psychologist, partner, all at the same time. And I think that helped me a lot to kind of like to deal with the tough situations at the camp. And I think the best lesson for me is to just don't react. Just don't react and detach yourself to the emotion that you're feeling in the moment. Observe it, and just also use time as your tool, because it's very different to confront someone right on the spot than half an hour later, no?
Mm.
Or an hour later, well, where things cool down, or maybe months. No, it's like you have to like let the experience, pass, and then give it another iteration and another, and kind of like put the pieces in a different way, and talk to each one, because we're all humans. We all have emotions. We forget that in the corporate world.
Mm.
When you're talking about your friends, your community in a situation like that, we have to be super careful. It's family. It's family too. You cannot treat family as a, you know hierarchy, businesses. That's where people get confused
Hmm.
at Burning Man. They think, I mean, they're all kind of know that they know each other most of the time, but most of the time they're friends, and they enter into a, hierarchy situation that they trying to like extrapolate what happens, and in a company there. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So that the conversation and the tone, and the leading by example is, I think, the key to that. No, because first you do it, and quietly people will see, no, and everything will follow. So it's less about talking and giving directions or orders, but like doing it first yourself.
Hmm.
I think that's very, very important. And in our camp, is half of the people at our camp work. So work in the sense of like they have a very crucial task, running something.
Hmm.
So yeah, so like we do this, the Illumina, this piece of art, and you have different shifts throughout the week, and kitchen, but it's the car, the what we give also at the camp. You go at the camp, there is like cacao, and I mean, all camps do that, but I think in our case we're very este, work centric, as the provide the experience. So we are on a mission, half of the camp.
Mm. Quick question there. I was speaking to actually many. Let's see, I think you are, I think, camp number 7 that or number 8 that I speak to. So I
Wow.
talked to Mystic, Playa Alchemist, Camp Epic,
Mm,
all these different camps, right? And
legendary.
then providing big experiences to the playa. And one thing I notice is most camp organizers don't become consumers of other like experience because they're holding the fort down. So they're managing the
Oh,
producing of the event itself. Do you find yourself mostly holding the post of, hey, let me make sure that this experience happens for as a gift to the playa, or do you also find some free time to go out and experience and be the consumer of the playa?
no, I think I only did that my first year back in 2011. The rest is just I see things from afar. It's just like, and that's it. Because like for us, we start to operate the car at 5 p.m. for
Hmm.
our sunset set, and we don't stop until 10 in the morning.
Hmm.
And from 10, breakfast, sleep, wake up at 4, eat, back again. And
Mm.
that's kind of like the loop. And there's different teams, but myself, I try to go to like every day, no. And
Hmm.
this year I did kind of like did my escape discovery, quick um, for looking around with my girlfriend, and I think that's the first year I did it for like just
Hmm.
for an hour, and came back to see the art. I love seeing the art at the playa,
Hmm.
to see
Hmm.
how they did it and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's what happens to most of the who the people that are running art or
Hmm.
camps or art cars.
So on Noble Warrior, we also talk a lot about purpose. What's your definition of purpose?
My definition of purpose.
Hmm.
Hmm.
How do you define it? And then also, what is your perspective, your purpose?
Yeah, well, hmm, got me off guard with that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Uh, it's kind of
Well, how about this? While you think, let me articulate why I asked that question. Is that cool with you?
yeah, sure.
All right, awesome. So my friends and I were having this discussions about micro purposes and macro purpose, right? So micro purposes could be, hey, let me be self-sustainable, take care of my kids, college funds, and so on and so on, right? Some smaller in scope. And then there's the selfless purposes, like the greater purposes, the Maha Dharma, so to speak,
Mm.
right? What's my contribution to humanity? And I'm asking that question basically is I want to know because the way you articulate your relationship of being the producer versus consumer, you're very selfless. You're producing this as a gift. So I just wanted to know, at what point became self-center purposes to selfless purposes.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, a very, very long
No, no, no,
concept, but I'm curious to know your perspective
no.
about.
That's super interesting. I think
Mhm.
there's like different levels of purpose,
Mhm.
for sure. No, and I think it starts with the self-centered purpose. Why? Because I think like Burning Man, I see it as a giant sandbox, a giant playground, and you can get in touch with your 10-year-old self,
Mhm.
playing with whatever you have at hand in the sand with your other colleagues. And I think that to be playful and to have that experience inside yourself, I think that's the first like block of this. That's where it started. No, so I think that's self-centered. Like I want to feel that. I want to come back. I want to reconnect with my inner child through this.
Mm.
Another layer is, I mean, I rather be working, quote unquote, at Burning Man than consuming, and that's like
Mm,
general across the board in my life. I rather be doing stuff. It's more interesting and fun to me. You know?
mm. Do you mind
And
double clicking on that real quick?
yeah,
Why is that? Because that's unusual.
that's
Most people
unusual.
want to, yeah, most people want to consume, experience, enjoy versus, sweating and, stressing out about, timetables and budgets and things like that. So,
Yeah, no,
so
well,
say so say more about why you find enjoyment in working and producing.
okay, so Ken from the 747 project told me like Burning Man was
Uh,
vacations for workaholics.
I got
No,
it.
but I think it has a deeper layer to it because with the let's call it reward, and maybe
Mhm,
it's not the right term because it's in another like plane, but the reward that you get from doing stuff at Burning Man,
mhm,
you really strike something inside you because there is a resonance of like, and it has to do with the gifting, right? The gifting when you give and you are contributing to something bigger than yourself is like it's a very high frequency feeling,
mhm,
and it's coming back in a feeling. It's not coming back in some other form, and in life to experience that is amazing. I think that's what people that do work with their hands to, like, I have a friend that Marty from Maxa, the other camp from Mexico, that he goes some weekends to help build houses for people in need, right? And I think that's a element in our lives as important as doing exercise, as important as spirituality, as any other important pillar to feel that you are to feel balanced and to feel aligned, and that gifting, that being part of something does that. No, and I think I have mentioned it a lot because I think that's what happens at Burning Man is the whole gifting economy. You take the transaction layer out, you experience what we may experienced thousands of years ago when we were surviving in tribes, right? So I
mhm,
think we are tapping into that. We don't know it, but it feels amazing. So maybe that's the reason um, of selflessness working at Burning Man. And I think the other layer is the self-expression,
mhm,
right? And I think when you stop expressing yourself, and if you look at the universe, everything is wired for creation.
mhm,
Nothing is not that. So the collision of stars and the appearing of planets and the appearing of life, and then life itself is just like not creating itself, and it's a never ending of that ourselves. No, I heard this super funny phrase from Will Ferrell say
mhm.
that he said that everything we do is to get laid.
To get laid,
To get
LAID.
laid, to get laid. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it was a very funny thing he said. But I tie it to it's the procreation.
Mhm,
That's the inner, you know most inner core thing of ourselves, kind of like
mhm,
this like fish that does a mandala in the
mhm,
sand, right? Beautiful, just to mate, no, and you see that all around. So anyway, the point is that expression, which is creation, is a core part of ourselves, and we need to do it. And we don't do it, we feel shitty.
Mm,
And can be in any shape or form. But I think it's just as going to the gym, eating well,
mm,
expressing, being part of something bigger, and gifting, selfless gifting. So I think those two, really um, collide at Burning Man, and
mm,
but unfiltered expression, which you don't see, is very, very rare.
mm,
No, usually you have the client or the company there, whatever, like putting their hands on your creation, no, and it's never just the pure creation. It's very rare. Anyway, so I think going back to purpose, no, the purpose of connecting with that feeling, the purpose of expressing, the purpose of community, and gifting, and if you tell me what's purpose, I think that's the it's kind of like this force, this
mm,
inspiring force inside of you that makes you este makes it so something has meaning. And yeah, and so what is my purpose? I think it has a lot of levels, in, in,
mm,
in different planes, and different, and it's either with my own circle, with my no, reconnecting with my expressing, with no, putting the project out there to extend the culture of, and making also the other purpose of making the whole thing round, so the gifting is a loop from Burning Man to the outside world, and funding, through the project, and the helping of communities through fundraisers, so we can come back. And well, that's one another level of purpose, right? And also going back to the plants and consciousness. um yeah, I think that also is a great purpose, to get that message and culture out.
mm. So what I'm hearing you say, well, number one, the overarching direction is to create a container to create for yourself as an
Mhm.
expression, as a natural expression of who you are, and also inspire others to do the same. In a nutshell, that's what I got from what you've
Yeah,
been doing right
well, that's a very good way of yeah, narrowing it down, for sure.
now. So I know that in your early 20s, when you first sold your company, I think it was 2000,
Yeah,
you went to India because you were experiencing some existential crises, right?
yeah.
So knowing what you know right now, what would you say to that person who is experiencing existential crises about, I don't know what all this is for, I'm successful in this and that, but it still feels empty and it doesn't quite fulfill my soul. What would you say to that person knowing what you know today?
That is a beautiful process. Yeah, and just like be grateful that you're living that process in the grand scheme of things. Looking back, and being totally objective. That's what it is. I think if we, there is a saying in Spanish. I don't know if it exists in English. Is like nothing nothing of wrong or no everything of wrong and evil turns into there is no way that it doesn't turn into a positive, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
There is no way to escape that kind of like law. So yeah, as humans, any crisis, any inner searching, and I think the experience of losing yourself, and finding yourself again, and knowing you, and leaning into discomfort, so you can push through your traumas to transmute them, and to like dissolve them, so you can be more whole again, and going through those scars that feels like it's super scary. I mean, that process is beautiful. I mean, what better thing than that? No? Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, what you're saying to the younger self, the people who are experiencing existential crises right now, is trust the process, do your best to enjoy it. You will appreciate it later on and learn the lessons.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm. Well, here let me be the skeptic and push back, right? Let me speak on their behalf. Like, but
Yes.
it's so painful. I don't want this. I need to get out of pain right now.
Well, no pain, no gain. I mean, we all know that. So why would it be different with your emotional process? Yeah,
Mhm.
it's exactly the same. Thank you. Yeah, same dynamic.
Yeah. Well, here's my assertion, Pablo. What Mayan warriors providing in the playa, off the playa, is to give people that space of inspiration, so they have that spaciousness to relax and be inspired. Like, oh, life is great, life is fun, life is full of joy. Let me access that. And if Pablo can attract all these artists to bring their beautiful creation to the playa, maybe I too can do the same, right? Bring it to the playa, bring it to the planet, and bring something that's unique that only I can bring. So that's something that you're not saying those words, but that's what I get from experiencing Illumina, Mind Warrior, all the musicians, all of the DJs. That's the vibe that I get. Like, hey, it's possible. Let me figure out, let me get inspired. What could I bring to this
Mm.
soup of humanity?
It's 100%, 100%, and I love that, and I think people experience that at some degree at Burning Man, or even in our events. No, we invite a lot of artists to do their arts and to put them like in kind of like replicate a mini
Hmm.
version of Burning Man. No, in the event where people that haven't been to Burning Man go and see other people that are like more free, more expressive, and these other pieces of art that are interactive, that are very out of the ordinary, because are also pure expression. So I think that whole container, as you mentioned, kind of like plants a little seed to like wanting to know more, or experience more of that, or do it, that themselves. So yeah, I think that's yeah, it's really uh, yeah, what happens at the burn and what we try to extend.
So you're an experienced producer, and you have now new canvases that you can play, right? There's the real world, there's Burning Man, right? The best
Right.
one, right? Whole new canvas without any
Yeah.
commodification and all those
Restrictions.
things, gift economy. And there's the everyday default world, right? Off Burning Man. And then there's the virtual world, the meta space. And then you talked about that as well. When you think about scaling this intention, this container of transformation, of inspiration, what's your perspective of using all these different canvases to help you forward this movement that's called Mayan Warrior?
Hmm. But the question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Let me see if I can ask in a more succinct way. You have different canvases:
Uh-huh.
Burning Man, Off Burning Man, Meta Spaces. How do you? What's the dream? What's the dream?
Well,
What's the vision to of this movement?
man, like, okay, what would inspire me is to scale this, the message, the project, the ethos, the intention, to beautiful places around the globe. I think that that will like be very inspiring for me. No, I have to be the first one to be inspired to push this, but I think okay. So the situation here is that you have the 10 principles of Burning Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Decommodification, and it's very clear. The culture is very defined at Burning Man, and commercial is commodification, and it's different. How can we respect both worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to scale something, right? I think we're trying to figure out that. It's like, okay, that's why we're a non-profit. That's why we want to make everything transparent next year, so people know like every single cent where it goes and how we help and the whole meaning of the project, so they kind of like get it more, no? And with that foundation, scale it so we can help more, so we can give get the message across further in all places, not all places, but like in I think the world is amazing, and there is the very inspiring spots around the globe that we could like do something like this, and bring more artists and fund other art projects to bring into the experience, so they can also go to Burning Man, and we can, I think we can do a whole ecosystem that is aligned, no, with the culture, with the ethos, and also can live in the outside world. So and so they don't mix, but they can like live together. So yeah, if you ask me, I would love to do that.
Mm. So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing is having a platform to support these artists so that either they cohabitate or collaborate together and to be able to make more art. This is what I'm saying. This is
Exactly.
what I'm hearing.
Exactly, because like at the end, it all comes down to funding.
Hmm. So on that note, you are a very unique person to ask this question of, because
Right.
I talk to Think Camp organizers who are like coaches, entrepreneurs, and who are like artists, who
Mhm.
are anyways, but you have unique perspective. You're both an artist and also a fintech entrepreneur.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that makes your perspective, if anyone who could think about ways to fundraise or finance or patronize these
Right.
artists, I think you be that guy because you understand the artist's mind, you understand the financial instruments to help
Right.
support that. What are your ideas to do that right at this moment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the
Not to
end,
put you on the spot or
no,
anything,
no,
but
no, 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 no. But at the end, any organization, you can look at it as a machine,
hmm
any, right? And the machine needs fuel,
hmm
period,
hmm
right? And it has to be self-sustainable,
hmm
right? And so that it can grow.
hmm
So I think those are like the basics of it, and I think there is a good opportunity to kind of like mix the artists on a platform like this that is a non-profit. I think that's important because it will help.
Actually,
Yeah.
double clicking on that. To me, profit, for profit and nonprofit is a taxation distinction between the two. Is there anything beyond that? What's the difference in your mind of why a nonprofit foundation
Okay.
or
Besides
for profit?
besides the tax, no,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
not a business.
Uh-huh.
It's not a business. No, it's not like you have shareholders
Hmm.
getting dividends. So if you don't have that, you can pour it into the project again. I mean, most companies do that in their early days, but I think if you can make it so it's always like that, no, you can hit a critical mass that you can really start to make an impact. How do you make an impact? You need resources. How do you get the resources? No, so we're figuring out how to do it, and I think we need to have conversations with the community, Burning Man org, to see like, hey, how do we feel we can fit all these pieces, that for this to happen and that can feel right,
Hmm.
give a good message. So
Hmm.
I mean, we're in that process. We're in that process. I think maybe 2023, no, will be not a cash flow negative
Hmm.
project
Hmm.
because you can talk to whomever at Burning Man, and
Hmm.
oh my God, it's like it costs a lot
Hmm.
in all levels, no, and
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so I think it's a great challenge. It's a great challenge that I mean, I'd rather do that, once I like stop my entrepreneurial life, rather do that than another startup or like, I think it's more inspiring for me.
Yeah, one of the things I definitely feel you whenever you speak at your heart, you're an artist. And we can talk about why you started fintech companies or this type of things with your father, and it's a separate topic. But at your heart of heart, what I felt is you
Yeah,
are an artist.
yeah, I can't wait to do that full time. Really.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, actually, one thing I noticed about your LinkedIn, you have multiple things that's happening still. So you're like, instead of serial entrepreneur, you're a parallel entrepreneur.
Um, yeah, yeah. Circumstances have brought me to to this point where, yeah, I kind of like need to do different things. But I mean, after a while, it's like, what is this all about, and what really fulfills me? And I think everybody should like ask that question at some point.
So for the people who are, I call them modern householders, right?
Mm,
Who are thinking about, hey, I have responsibilities to my employees, to my family, to my kids.
yeah.
And there are also projects that I find more purpose, more meaning. And I'm either finding a good balance between them or transitioning to
Um,
that. What would you say to those people who are also in similar shoes, who are grappling with their life decisions?
okay, man, that's a tough one. It's easy to say, follow your passion, and the money will come later, right? We hear that a lot. I think it's true. I think it's true, and I think every year it gets easier
Mhm.
because we come from a place where like just big companies and you get a job,
Mhm.
and there was no other way to like make a living or make a company. And now I think it's easier to to have the thread of between your passion, your calling, and to make it a business, not a business, to sustain yourself doing that. I think it's easier every as time goes by. So I will say just like follow that, no? And of course there is some this the endeavors or disciplines that are like easier to monetize than others. I understand that also, but at the end, I mean, what are you the question of how would you rather spend your time? No, doing something that you don't like or you like. So I think you have to like deep look into you or yourself, and sacrifice maybe stuff that you need to sacrifice because, man, doing something that you don't like is like it's heavier than anything, I think.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe.
So for people who's looking at Mind Warrior as a great example of success, right? You're impacting thousands of people. You have the brand. You're collaborating with world class artists and creators,
Hmm.
and that you're impacting people all over North America and South America.
Hmm.
Um, what would you advise other creative entrepreneurs who is looking at you as a exam as a success example in terms of creating a movement, creating marketing, creating this very cohesive experience.
Mhm.
Any specific advice for those people who are thinking about, just in terms of movement and marketing and these type of questions?
Oh man, that's that's a very high level. Okay, so first of all, I mean, what is success,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I look at the Mayan project, I mean, the potential is way bigger, no? And we, we are a very small project compared to, no? So it's a very niche, small
Mm-hmm.
project that, so I mean, it's working, no, but it needs a lot of more work and dedication to like to reach a point that like, hey, this is successful because it does like very impactful things in altruistic ways, and it's beautiful. There's a lot of angles to it, no?
Mm-hmm.
And success means different things,
What
right?
does it mean for you?
Success means to do something that it's aligned a line that and that is coherent. That's very difficult because, man, I mean, life it's very, and I think it's a reflection of ourselves, right? So the more aligned we are, it's the more clear. No, the more coherent means that no, there is less divisions inside you, right? And and it's more a more solid one piece thing. And I think when you look at companies and projects and you find contradictions, you find some stuff that doesn't work, it's kind of like the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think success is yeah what we all want actually. No, is to be whole, no, to heal everything that you have inside, and eventually anything outside will be a reflection of that, and vice versa, maybe
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. But
Well, I, I,
I went too hippie on the response.
no, not at all, actually. So, Noble Warrior, we do talk about this a lot. I might personally have a course that's all about supporting and empowering entrepreneurs to be more purpose driven. So, in my mind, it's a spectrum, right? So, there's the awakening space
Mhm.
stage, and there's the people who is, maybe, yeah, fully self actualize as a purpose driven entrepreneur. And in my mind, the first thing to do is healing, is coming back to wholeness,
Yeah,
because if you create something based off on not being whole, all your creation is wounded in some ways, right? So in my mind, it's very important to come back to wholeness, or at least functionally whole.
yeah. I think that's super important, or the most important thing I can say, right? Because when the more whole, the more healed, you will have the emotional strength to do a lot of stuff that maybe no we're not doing right now, right? Because everything there is a carton of fear in everything,
Mm-hmm.
no? And I remember Madonna in an interview.
Madonna the singer.
Madonna the singer in an
Uh-huh.
interview, which man, that girl pushed limits for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless or of the other stuff, but she said like every day do something that it fears you,
Mm-hmm.
that fears you, yeah. So I think is that there's a curtain of fear in everything, so that the stronger you are, the more whole and the more healed, no, the less um that curtain is going to be there in,
Mm.
in different aspects. So yeah, I think it's super important, and I think that's the work that we have to do, and that's the most meaningful thing, no, we can do on this life.
I really like the way you phrase it, by the way, because I thought about processing or coming back to wholeness as a place of strength, but I didn't think about it from a place of boldness or courage.
Mm.
I love that you basically, in my mind, what I interpret what you said is if you come back to wholeness, then you can be more bold, be more courageous, take a
Yeah.
bigger actions. That's what I, interpreted what you said. I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's not even boldness or courage in that. And I think you just do it because there's not you don't have the scar anymore.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
No, I mean you need the boldness and the courage to like go through the pain or the trauma or the yeah. And I think yeah, you're right. I think while you do it outside, when you go through the curtain of fear, that's also a healing process, right?
Hmm, hmm,
You can also go through that and heal that part of you, no?
hmm. So speaking of, if you
Mhm.
don't mind, I want to get a little personal with you. You had shared in your previous interviews that your father discouraged you to pursue your passion, and he wanted you, quote unquote, do something. I think the word was more scalable, right? More meaningful, and so forth. How are you with that right now today? Have you healed from that dissuasion of moving towards what you truly desire?
Right, right. What I really want to do.
Hmm.
I
Right.
mean, how I see it now, I mean, it's logical. I understand why my father said, "Hey, like, stop doing the silly stuff. Do something that is gonna like support you." No, and and I think that's a lot of the baby boomer uh, way of thought, right?
Hmm.
And the baby boomers, no, their fathers, their parents before was like, "Hey, you're gonna be a doctor. Period. No, you are going to be, and you're gonna be the same." No? So I think in evolution terms, right? We come from the previous generation through the baby boomers of like you have to be this, then the baby boomers to us a little bit more open, and from our generation to the next one, no, like my son, I have a 16-year-old son.
Hmm.
Like, hey, like do whatever you want, but just like whatever it is, it's fine, and you just need to find it and explore, no? So it's a very different message from the one I got. So at the end, what I see myself happening in me is that I lived the process of the evolution of that generation, right? And it has its like nice things. What are the nice things is like, hey, being able to experiment, like doing maybe what you not love doing, and then no transitioning to what you love doing, and having that experience, and that alone is worth it, right? So I'm at peace with that, no, and it took me a lot of years to like, because I really resent my father in the inside, but like, dude, I
Hmm.
was like, I was in my path. I was like, making something, and it was working. Why take it
Hmm.
away, right?
Hmm.
And also he had his romantic story in his mind of like me following his steps, right?
Taking over the family business.
Taking over the family
Yeah.
business and me in his chair. So
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
took me a while to say, dude, I'm not you.
Hmm.
Oh, I just want to do my thing. That's one, like I created my company, and I want to have my own path, and I will invite you to no este, to invest, uh, to be a part of it. But that's the way I think it should be. No, like, hey, like we're different humans. We're
Hmm.
different humans, completely different humans. So yeah, I mean, maybe for other cultures is easier to understand that, right? But I think in other cultures, is very Latin, no? Of like it is very family oriented. Is very continuing with whatever the family has, and oh, this is strange. but it is like that. No, if you look at India, no, it's like very different in Saudi Arabia or like, my God, it's like, yeah,
I can't speak for Saudi Arabia or India, but in terms of the Chinese culture, it's actually very similar. It's a lot of like tradition, legacy, this type of conversation. It is changing, but just historically, culturally, that's very much family is very important.
right, similar.
So,
Yeah.
how for those who are watching,
Hmm.
how did you come to peace with your father? Are there specific things that you did or, hey, if you are incomplete with your parents, do this thing or do that thing?
Oh man, so, I mean, that's the toughest of all. Okay, I went to this Iboga
Mm,
ceremony, which I highly recommend,
mm. Why? Why do you recommend it?
because besides the obvious, you know, encounter with yourself and what we talked about this previously, I think it's very different to other psychedelic plants. No, talking about psychedelic plants, mushroom, peyote, ayahuasca, San Pedro, DMT. If that's a plant, well, it comes from plants. Uh, this is a completely different angle, which is also a plant, and it's iboga, not ibogaine.
Mm,
Iboga is the raw natural
hmm
it's the uh, root bark, I think.
hmm
Um, anyway, so anyway, in that ceremony, the guide, which was a great guy, told me there's two types of um, issues in you. It's either from your mother or from
hmm
your father.
hmm
Period. And it happened between age 0 and age 7. No, I'm putting it very roughly. Of course, there is
Sure.
more to it, but basically that's the thing. So, and why? Because imagine having the two inputs in your first years when you're kind of like growing. You basically grab the traumas and fears of both sides and plus your experiences. So basically you're made of that. The issues that we all have inside is are those three things. So man, it is like tough. It is tough. The mommy and daddy issues, holy shit, like that. Those are the toughest. And I think what I can say is just it takes a lot. It takes a lot to work, no? And it's I mean, it could be fast or it can be long depending on the issue, but I think that's basically that's the work. That's the
But
work.
why Iboga specifically? Because you mentioned others and you said you really recommend Iboga. Is there any specific reason why you recommend it for you, right? Why that was specifically useful for you?
Okay, because I can say any psychedelic is uh, besides the healing experience and the being aware of or seeing things inside of you from another angle so you can heal them.
Hmm
It comes with a lot of fireworks, a lot of visual. I mean, it can get as crazy as the craziest that it can get. Period.
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And that is very distracting.
Oh, Iboga doesn't have them.
No,
Oh.
Evolving is just like you're like here, but you're kind of like the bandwidth between your own consciousness where all the issues are and your conscious mind is just like way like wider and so in
Mm,
a very clear mind. Of course it can get a little visual for some people. For me it didn't. You see visions. It's
mm,
also very
mm,
clear visions of static visions, but like the type of visions that you have when you think or when you dream. So it's
mm,
like
mm,
they're not fireworks. They're just like more clear, but they're there. No.
mm, mm,
They-
mm.
So, uh, and that's another conversation. Whether they come from is either with the third eye or the mind or both or a projection. Like who knows? No, but there is way less fireworks, so you have a more clear mind to go through stuff. Yeah, and MDMA therapy also for the scars is, I think, ultra key. Like if you ask me, any 18-year-old, 20-year-old, este boy, girl has to go, or human has to go through that. We'll get it will be a way easier life if you do that. I'm sure, and there's a lot of studies right now, no, of regarding that, maps and yeah, I think that's gonna be a quantum leap in evolution of humanity when that gets, approved or seen as a legit way to heal. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my personal practice around it is very much the way you describe it. I'm less interested about the fractals, the sacred geometries, the visions, all those things. I think those are interesting, but ultimately, I'm interested in the insights and lessons, and for me, my plant and medicine experience allow me to see truth, but also illusions, and I take notes during the sessions, and then afterwards look at them later to evaluate.
That's a big one, to distinguish between illusions and what's real, what's not. And that's a huge task in those realms, for sure.
Yeah. Are there things that you want to talk about that I haven't addressed?
CK, I think you addressed like the most important stuff in, in an hour and 17 minutes. Yeah.
That's the flavor of having a conversation with me. I am actually curious. One other thing too. If you look at a spectrum of just discovering one's purpose, refining their purpose, living their purpose, to all the way actualized, right, standing tall, who in your mind live a actualized, purpose-driven life as a creator, as an entrepreneur, in your mind?
Shit, well. Okay, I think public persons or public, that's it's not that. I think it's difficult to say and to judge because like I don't know them, no. But
Yeah.
where I see this more is with artists. Artists, no, when you see them in their element, doing their thing, and you see like you can see it, not see it. You can like kind of like see that they're in their place, right? Nothing is, or very few things are off, and they're walking the talk and doing their art, expressing and living from it, and and everything they do has this tint of like, is with a very gracious. No, that grace is very unique and very of them. Very, yeah, yeah. Versus the corporate. No, sometimes you meet people in my world of like, hey, so you see one side of them in the office in the corporate world, but you don't see them. It's when you get out of that context and start to see kind of like their true, essence and nature, and it's beautiful. So if you ask me, yeah, artists are
any specific person? No, I'm asking that question because I have some follow-up questions for you. So who is, I know there are many artists, you mentioned quite a few in your previous podcast. Who is a person that you admire, who's congruent, who's coherent with what they say, what they do, how they dress, how they act?
Right. Um, Sabino is one of the artists that works, that collaborates on the project. And that guy, I mean, his whole thing is like, wow, very just, cohesive and expressive, and it's beautiful to watch. Very inspiring. It's like, hey, man, I have to get there someday, right?
So if you don't mind, dimensionalize a little bit more. What about Sabino? You know, he's expressive, and what else? To have you say like, wow, he's an actualized,
Yeah,
purpose-driven creator and entrepreneur.
yeah, because of course, well, first of all, he's an artist that has some Zapotec roots, which he's very
Oh,
true.
what?
Zapotec,
I,
Zapotec
I
is
don't know what that
yeah. Well,
means.
that's a strange one. Kind of like Aztec,
Like
yeah,
Aztec. Okay.
Zapotec with a
Mm-hmm.
C. Um, comes from that culture, Oaxaca.
Mm-hmm.
He embraces that culture, but brings it into um, the modern age with like a beautiful style, and the whole ideology of the Zapotecs is what he kind of like preaches through his art, and has its own self improvement and evolution uh, with it, and expressing also that, right? And mixed with kind of like spacey, um you have to see his art, you have to see his art, cosmic inspiration, no, so very very aligned, and he's doing well. He's an upcoming artist from Mexico, Oaxaca, that is beginning to be recognized internationally, and it's very unique. He's like as unique as like, wow, this is like, I've never seen something similar. That's
Mm.
also super rare, no. And yeah, so those types of, humans, characters are very inspirational for me, and I think in the project we have a lot of those, luckily, they have like, we have found ourselves. And I can mention like Paolo Montiel, which is a lighting designer that also very similar. And Rebolledo, which we talked about earlier, no, his whole lifestyle and art is very consistent, and the way he lives, his whole house, his whole dressing, his whole everything is like very him, no, his music. So yeah, I think those are the type of characters I look up to, as a human that it's doing its thing, and yeah.
So how can we, as listeners, let's say being inspired by you, inspired by all these artists that you mentioned, practicalize, or Noble Warrior, right? Dojo moves. What kind of practices can we use as a way to move ourselves towards a more actualized way of being?
I think there's thousands of paths. All
What path have you taken on personally?
Yeah, I think whatever path that it's healing,
Hmm.
no, the result will be that we're talking about. No, and of course I only know that from my experience, because I only know me, like, right. So that's
Hmm.
only know you.
Hmm.
So I do see a perfect, you can trace a line of like the more you heal, the more you'll be aligned, and also things around you align as well, and everything follows. But first, yeah, it's inside for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, anything that accomplishes healing.
Mm.
There's,
So
there's a wide menu of stuff and spectrum to that.
so if I'm hearing you right, for those who aspire to be even more purpose driven, even a better entrepreneur, I may put words in your mouth. A good place to start is heal thyself, come back to wholeness. Is that
Yeah.
recreating what you're saying.
Correct.
Beautiful. Any last words you wanted to say before we complete our conversation today?
No, it's okay. I think yeah, nothing. I'm super grateful to be here. This is a big surprise, CK. Very um, subtle but profound but beautiful. This the conversation and podcast you have. I had the chance to like browse through your guests, and wow, that you have an amazing roster of people, and I'm honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo, for being here, sharing your story, and honestly, be so open about your own journey, um, and be so open about all the healing journey that you have done. I know that I'm a fan, and I can't wait to see more of your creation. So thank you so much for being on Noble Warrior. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you, CK. I hope to meet you in person soon.
Absolutely.